The 3 impeachment complaints filed against Vice President Sara Duterte will be transmitted to the office of the Speaker if there are no additional complaints that will be filed and if no more lawmakers will endorse them. In an online interview on Friday, January 10, House of Representatives Secretary General Reginald Velasco explains that the reason why the complaints have yet to be forwarded to Speaker Martin Romualdez's office is because he wants to avoid disenfranchising possible complainants. His view comes after some lawmakers appealed to defer the transmittal as more raps may be filed or because they might endorse the existing complaints. But after Velasco gets to talk with the lawmakers once session resumes on January 13, and if there are no more complaints to be filed, he will forward the 3 cases against Duterte to the House leader. Velasco says he faces a unique situation since many complaints were filed and may be filed against a single official, unlike before when the first complaint immediately gets forwarded to the Speaker. Under the House rules, there is no specific timetable as to how long a complaint can stay in the office of the House Secretary General. Velasco says such rules only apply after he has forwarded the complaints to Romualdez, who will then have 10 session days to submit the document to the House Committee on Rules. The Secretary General earlier said his office received feelers that a 4th complaint against Duterte may be filed. He also said some lawmakers told him in confidence that they are thinking of endorsing one of the 3 impeachment complaints filed earlier or another complaint. Several lawmakers and petitioners have urged the House leadership to address the complaints, as a social weather station survey showed that 41% of respondents are in favor of having Duterte impeached from office. The Department of Agriculture says the maximum suggested retail price for imported rice will be at 58 pesos per kilogram effective January 20. This means retailers should not sell the commodity for more than 58 pesos per kilo. In a statement on Friday, January 10, Agriculture Secretary Francisco Tiu Laurel Jr. says the maximum SRP will ensure the price of rice is fair and affordable, even as the government makes sure that the rice industry remains profitable. The DA chief says the implementation of the maximum SRP will be implemented initially in Metro Manila and will be reviewed every month to take into account several factors such as global prices of the grain. According to Tiu Laurel, if the current direction of global prices holds, the maximum SRP may be lower after review. The DA says the price was determined after extensive consultations with importers, retailers, rice industry stakeholders, as well as government agencies and law enforcement bodies. As of January 8, imported commercial rice sells for as much as 64 pesos. Work in government offices and classes at all levels in the cities of Manila and Pasay are suspended on Monday, January 13 due to the National Rally for Peace of the Iglesia ni Cristo. Based on Memorandum Circular No. 76 released on Friday, January 10, government work and classes are suspended in the 2 cities as 1 million people are anticipated to participate in the INC event at the Quirino Grandstand on Monday. According to the memorandum, agencies whose functions involve the delivery of basic and health services, disaster preparedness and response, and other vital services shall continue operations. Malacañang says the suspension of work in non-government or private offices will be at the discretion of the respective companies. The INC earlier said its June 13 National Rally for Peace was organized to express its support for President Bongbong Marcos's opposition to the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. The president previously called on his supporters in Congress to drop any plan to impeach Duterte, as this would distract both the House and the Senate from their more urgent work. 3 impeachment complaints against Duterte were filed by civil society members and endorsed by minority lawmakers in the House of Representatives in December 2024. The impeachment complaints are in connection with Duterte's alleged confidential fund misuse and her threat against Marcos and members of his family, among other issues cited. A 4th impeachment, coming from the House majority members, is set to be filed next week. Known for the block voting power of its members, the INC openly supported the uniteam of Marcos and Duterte during the 2022 elections. Passengers of the Light Rail Transit Line 1 might start paying more for their rides by April after the railway's private operator filed a petition for a fare increase to allow it to recoup its investments. In its petition, the Light Rail Manila Corporation is asking the Department of Transportation to allow it to hike the LRT1's base fare to 18 pesos and 15 centavos from the current 13 pesos and 29 centavos, as well as the additional fare per kilometer to 1 peso and 65 centavos from 1 peso and 21 centavos. Commuters traveling between 5 kilometers and 16 kilometers will pay an additional 6 pesos and 2 centavos based on the proposed new fare matrix, while those riding for less than 5 kilometers will be charged 8 pesos and 65 centavos more per ride. On the other hand, those traveling beyond 16 kilometers will pay an additional 12 pesos and 50 centavos. In a public briefing, Transport Secretary Jaime Bautista says the LRT authority has already approved the fare hike petition. But Bautista says it would also need the go signal of the DOTR's Rail Regulatory Unit before it could be implemented.
Kailangan ngang dumaan dun sa Rail Regulatory Unit and then gagawa sila ng recommendation for DOTR to approve or disapprove, no? So siguro hintayin natin kung sakali mang magkakaroon ng increase, no? Ang pinakamaaga nito ay siguro start ng second quarter. Second quarter, mga April, ganyan.
Transport Assistant Secretary for Railways Georgette Aquino in a separate interview says the Rail Regulatory Unit should have a decision by next month on the petition. Aquino cites 3 potential scenarios. The proposal could be approved as is, the fare hike could be green-lighted but at a lower rate, or the petition could be rejected. Light Rail Manila Corporation President and CEO Enrico Benipayo says they have accumulated a fare deficit of 2.17 billion pesos since 2016. Under the concession agreement, Benipayo noted that fare adjustments are allowed every 2 years, but in the past 9 years, their petition has been approved only once in 2023. Benipayo explains that the fare hike would also help them recover the 45 billion pesos worth of investments in the past 9 years to upgrade the railways.